Having found you, we have found everything. The earth, the sky, everything belongs to us. That's quite an opening line, isn't it?
It really is powerful stuff.
Makes you wonder, what if getting hold of really deep knowledge could actually give you that feeling, that sense of belonging to everything?
It's a feeling that definitely connects with the material we're looking at today.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into this, well, unique text called the Morning Murli, the one dated April 24th, 2025.
Right. And it's important to remember this isn't like a news report or, a research paper. It's more spiritual guidance, instruction.
Yeah, think of our job today as pulling out the key insights, the bits about, say, personal growth, maybe our purpose, and even the vision of the future it lays out.
And the goal is really to boil down that core message for you, the listener. Give some clarity on the main themes, what they might mean, but, without getting bogged down in jargon.
We want it to be engaging, right?
Mm.
Looking for those maybe surprising bits or ideas that make you think.
Exactly. Those little nuggets.
Okay, let's dive in then. One of the first things that really jumped out at me was this very direct request. It's from the father to the sweet children.
Ah, yes, the call to continue to study well.
And also to maintain the honor of the father's beard. That phrase. It's quite something.
It is evocative, isn't it? And it seems to stand for kind of the integrity of the teachings themselves, the lineage.
So protecting the message.
Yeah, and the text links it straight to avoiding what it calls dirty acts. Things that would defame the true father, the true teacher, and the Sat Guru.
Okay, so father here is like the ultimate spiritual source. God, maybe.
Yeah.
And Sat Guru is the true guide.
That's the sense of it, yes. So these dirty acts would be things that go against the core principles, things that could bring shame or dishonor to that source.
Got it. And there's a promise tied to this, isn't there? To remain pure whilst you continue to study.
Yes. Purity. That seems absolutely fundamental here.
Foundational.
Absolutely. And it's not just, outward actions. It seems to be about thoughts, intentions, too. A whole approach.
Right. A kind of inner clarity.
Which is presented as essential if you want to reach the big goal mentioned. Becoming world masters.
World masters, yeah, that definitely catches the ear. The text mentions studying Raja Yoga.
Which is their specific system of meditation and study.
To become crowned princes and princesses, even emperors and empresses of the world. That's a huge ambition.
It is. But what's interesting is how the Murli says this isn't like a new idea. It calls it cyclical.
Meaning it's happened before, this opportunity.
Apparently so. And then it throws that question out really directly to you, listening. Am I making sufficient effort for that?
Forces you to check in with yourself.
Definitely encourages that self-reflection. Yeah. And it ties that effort to getting this highest on high inheritance of heaven.
So the journey to being a world master is also the path to, ultimate spiritual fulfillment.
Heaven. That seems to be the connection, yes. And the text really stresses that now is the important time. It calls it the confluence.
The confluence, like a meeting point.
Sort of. A transition period, like we're on a bridge studying now to go across to the other side to heaven. It's framed as a really crucial window for making progress.
Okay, so this confluence is the time to really push on spiritually. And the aim is to become full of all virtues. 16 celestial degrees full.
That phrase, 16 celestial degrees full, sounds like complete perfection, doesn't it? Total spiritual development.
It really does. And it prompts that question again, are we living up to that potential right now?
That's the core challenge. And the Murli contrasts this current path of active study with perhaps older ways, like just devotion. It suggests the Father is offering a more direct route now.
Empowering people to actively shape their spiritual future, maybe?
That seems to be the idea.
So how do you actually do this? How do you walk this path while, living a normal life?
Well, the advice is pretty clear. Live in your households, but do it while consciously thinking of yourself as a soul.
That inner eternal part.
Right. And constantly remembering the Father, that source. It seems quite practical, actually, integrating it into daily life.
But there's a slight exception, isn't there? For certain groups.
Yes. A specific point is made. For those in retirement and for Kumars and Kumaris, young, unmarried people in their student life.
They're advised differently.
They are specifically encouraged to remain celibate during the study period. It really highlights how much value is placed on purity during this intense learning phase for them.
It really drives home the role of the Father as the ocean of purity, the one who makes others pure.
And then there's that stark contrast it draws.
You mean between the current world, which it calls a brothel of impurity,
Strong language, yes. A metaphor for the perceived moral decline.
and the past golden age, with figures like Radha and Krishna as symbols of purity.
That contrast really paints a picture, doesn't it? Showing the potential to return to that higher state. Then it brings in the idea of the rosaries.
The Rosary of Rudra, the Rosary of Vishnu leading to the Rosary of Victory. What do these represent?
They seem like stages on the journey. Maybe Rudra is about the initial clearing out, the transformation through knowledge.
And Vishnu.
Perhaps represents maintaining that purity, that balance. And then the Rosary of Victory is the final achievement. Spiritual mastery.
And the absolute key to getting onto that final rosary.
Simple, but profound. Constantly remember the Father. Consistent connection.
It seems everything comes back to that remembrance.
It really does. And there's a strong warning, too, isn't there, about distractions.
Yeah, don't waste time on shells or chickpeas.
Which seem to stand for, worldly stuff, temporary pleasures that don't ultimately satisfy.
Especially when the Father is offering Jules the valuable teaching.
Exactly. Getting caught up in the shells and chickpeas is like being stuck in Raven's jail.
Another powerful metaphor, being trapped by negativity, by attachments.
That's the idea. Which leads naturally into the importance of soul consciousness.
Right, mentally stepping back from identifying just with the body or our roles.
And really grounding yourself in the belief that you are a soul, first and foremost.
That shift in perspective.
It's fundamental here. The text says the Father comes to Farat, India, each cycle specifically to bring people back to this understanding, to make them world masters again.
And the core teaching remains simple.
Remarkably so. Remember the Father while living your life at home. That remembrance is the key.
The key to going from impure to pure and from, what was the other term?
Tamopradhan, that state of spiritual heaviness or darkness, to Satapradhan, which is light, elevated, pure.
It's fascinating how it places everything within this big cycle of time. And then there's the whole discussion about happiness.
Ah, yes. Contrasting the world's happiness, temporary and short-lived, with the real deal, the lasting happiness in the land of happiness.
It even mentions sannyasis, renunciates, comparing worldly happiness to, well, droppings of a crow.
Pretty graphic, emphasizing how fleeting and maybe impure material pleasure is from that perspective.
But the Murli then points to a greater happiness, right?
Yeah.
The kind deities experience in that perfect state.
Exactly. And again, the Father's role is key in guiding people towards soul consciousness, which is the foundation for that kind of happiness.
And this involves understanding we've taken, 84 births?
Yes, that cycle. And recognizing that right now, both the soul and body are in that tamapradhan state.
Why? Because of body consciousness, identifying with the physical.
That and the buildup of sin's negative karma.
And the way out. The solution.
Manmanapav, constantly remembering the Father, that's presented as the way to purify everything again.
It really puts the emphasis on personal effort, doesn't it?
Hugely. You have to actively try to get threaded in the rosary, join that chain of winners.
Don't lose the chance to gain the kingdom.
Right, and it explains that remembering the Father is what actually cuts away the sins, like a spiritual solvent.
So good yoga, that connection, and really studying the teachings, that pays off later.
Directly. It's like you're transferring your spiritual bags and baggage to the future, packing for the next stage.
That's a great image, carrying forward the good stuff.
It is, and it makes a distinction, too, between general good deeds, like charity, and the specific act of helping the Father now through the study and practice.
Why is that distinction important?
It suggests this current time, this confluence, offers a unique opportunity for direct contribution to establishing the future kingdom, which, interestingly, is described as happening incognito.
Subtly, behind the scenes.
Perhaps. It's not overtly stated how, but it's not like a public works project.
This then leads into that contrast between different kinds of intellect.
The godly intellect versus the devilish intellect.
And the devilish ones are focused on worldly worries, like the example given about food shortages and population growth.
Exactly. Those kinds of material concerns are contrasted with the godly intellect, which is awakened by the Father's teachings, giving a different spiritual perspective on things.
So it comes back to respecting the Father, the source, and studying well.
Absolutely. Having that regard. And there's a warning, too, about forgetting the teachings or not making the effort.
You don't just pass automatically. No free ride.
Apparently not. It mentions a lack of mercy or blessings in terms of progress if the effort isn't made.
Okay, and near the end, it brings in the Trimurti.
Yes. Shiv, Baba the father, then Brahma, who's seen as the first man in the cycle.
And then the deities that the students, the Brahmins, become through this study.
Right. It shows the whole transformation. And again, emphasizes it's cyclical, happens over the 84 births.
And the kingdom gained through the father is described as permanent, unlike worldly kingdoms.
Yes, an eternal inheritance.
So rounding things off, there's a final push, a final encouragement.
A strong one. Reiteration of the father's request. Study well, claim a good status, keep the father's honor.
Don't get distracted chasing those shells, the temporary stuff.
Because if you don't study, the text warns, there will be repentance later, regret.
But it also offers hope, mentioning future visions, recognizing the Father as the purifier.
And as the great death of all deaths, the one who ultimately takes all souls back home.
And that final warning about Maya.
Right. Maya, the illusion, the force that pulls you away from your spiritual connection, your yoga. It's described as powerful, something that can break that connection if you're not careful. A constant vigilance is needed.
Okay, so if we were to sum up this whole deep dive into the April 24th, 2025 Murli, what's the core takeaway?
I'd say it presents a really complete spiritual path. It's focused on remembering the Father, really striving for purity in everything, and seeing now this confluence age as absolutely critical for achieving that future state of, well, world mastery.
And for you listening, the key points seem to be the need for consistent effort in learning and understanding this idea of a repeating cyclical spiritual journey with chances for growth and the potential for a massive personal transformation if you dedicate yourself to the study and remembrance.
That sums it up well. Consistent effort, understanding the cycle, and the potential within.
So we'll leave you with this final thought directly from the source. Ask yourselves how much you remember Baba the Father and for how long you spin the cycle of self-realization and enable others to do that.
It's a call for some honest self-assessment, isn't it? How deep is your practice, and what's its effect?
Definitely something to reflect on. And perhaps you might find exploring the concept of Shrimet, which means divine guidance in this context, useful for your own further thought.
A key concept within these teachings, for sure.